In Prince George's County, Maryland, the summer of 2020 was already heavy with tension. The country was in the middle of the pandemic. People were anxious, isolated, and overwhelmed. But nothing prepared the community for the brutal tragedy that would unfold on the morning of August 12, 2020, a morning when fear, desperation, and maternal instinct collided in one of the most devastating crimes in the county's recent history. At the center of it all was 26-year-old Shuvonne Vinson, a young mother who loved her daughter fiercely. Those who knew her said she had always been protective, sometimes excessively so. She had once dreamed of building a peaceful life, steady job, stable home, and a calm environment for her little girl. But life had taken a difficult turn. Her relationship with her ex-boyfriend, Travis Valenti, had fallen apart in a storm of misunderstandings and conflicts, and the two had become locked in bitter disputes over their daughter. Custody exchanges were tense. Arguments were frequent. Police had been called before. And over time, Shuvonne developed an intense fear that Travis or his family would take her daughter away permanently. She expressed this fear often, telling friends things like, "They don't want me involved," and "I feel like they are trying to replace me." Friends reassured her, but the fear stayed, growing, hardening, turning into something sharper. In the days before the tragedy, that fear reached its peak. Miscommunications and heated exchanges left Shuvonne feeling increasingly convinced that her daughter was being kept from her intentionally. She felt powerless, and that sense of powerlessness slowly formed into a dangerous determination. She would get her daughter back, she told herself. She would protect her, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would stand in her way. On the morning of August 12th, Shuvonne drove to a home in Clinton, Maryland. Inside the house were two women who had been part of her daughter's licensed birth, 28-year-old Christina Valenti and 50-year-old Marion Johnson, relatives of her ex-partner. They were known in the community as kind women, protective, gentle, and deeply family-oriented. They often cared for Travis's daughter, helping during custody exchanges and assisting with babysitting. For them, it was another ordinary day of making breakfast, organizing toys, and keeping a routine. But for Shuvonne, this was not an ordinary day. This was a day she believed she would lose her daughter forever. Shuvonne entered the neighborhood quietly. Neighbors later said they noticed how tense she looked, gripping the steering wheel, eyes fixed ahead like someone preparing for something she couldn't turn back from. She parked the car, stepped out, and walked toward the house with a sense of urgency. In her hand, concealed in her sleeve, was a knife she had brought with her, something that would instantly change multiple lives forever. When she reached the door, she didn't knock gently. Instead, she forced her way inside, shouting for her daughter. Shocked and confused, Christina and Marion tried to calm her down, insisting the child was safe, insisting there was no reason for panic. But Shuvonne was beyond calming. Her voice grew louder. She accused them of hiding the child, of turning her daughter against her, of plotting with Travis to take custody away. The women denied it, terrified at how quickly the situation was spiraling. What happened in the next few minutes was violent, chaotic, and heartbreaking. Investigators later describe a scene of intense struggle. Shuvonne, overwhelmed by fear and convinced she was saving her daughter from being taken away, attacked. Christina and Marion tried to defend themselves, but the confrontation escalated too quickly. Both women were stabbed multiple times. Blood covered the carpet, the walls, and parts of the furniture. The house, once filled with the normal sounds of family life, now echoed with screams and pleas for help. Outside, neighbors heard the noises, shouting, breaking furniture, and the unmistakable terror of people fighting for their lives. Several neighbors called 911, but by the time officers arrived, Shuvonne had already taken her daughter and fled the home. Inside, Christina and Marion lay fatally wounded. They died before paramedics could save them. What followed next was a frantic, county-wide search. Amber alerts had not yet been issued, but police were urgently circling neighborhoods, highways, and nearby counties. The child's safety was the first priority, but officers also had to assume that Shuvonne, emotionally unstable and possibly still armed, could be a danger to herself and to others. Hours later, officers located Shuvonne's car at a gas station in the nearby town of Landover. When they approached, they found her sitting quietly in the back seat, holding her daughter tightly. She wasn't resisting. She wasn't yelling. Instead, she was sobbing, rocking slightly, repeating the same phrase over and over. "I just wanted my baby. I just wanted my baby." Police carefully removed the child, who was unharmed but visibly confused. Officers said the girl looked like she hadn't fully understood what had happened, thankfully shielded from the worst of the violence. Shuvonne, however, was taken into custody immediately. During questioning, she told detectives she believed her daughter was in danger of being taken away permanently. She said she felt cornered, trapped, and terrified, describing a mental state that sounded desperate and chaotic. She insisted she never planned to murder anyone, that she only wanted her daughter back, and that everything went out of control. But for investigators, the facts were clear. 2 women were dead. Both had suffered multiple stab wounds, and the attack was brutal enough to show clear intent. Shuvonne Vinson was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, along with charges related to kidnapping, home invasion, and assault. When the case reached the courtroom, it became one of the most emotionally charged trials the county had seen in years. Members of Christina's and Marian's families attended every session, wearing memorial shirts and carrying photos of the 2 gentle women whose lives had been taken. They spoke about their kindness, their patience, and the way they loved children. They spoke about birthdays, holidays, and memories that would now forever carry the shadow of their violent deaths. The prosecution argued that Shuvonne's actions showed clear planning. She armed herself with a weapon, went to the home, forced her way inside, and launched a deadly attack. They emphasized that the victims posed no threat and were simply caring for a child they loved. The defense presented a very different picture: a mother in an emotional crisis, experiencing overwhelming fear and psychological distress, feeling cornered by a custody dispute she believed was rigged against her. They portrayed her as someone who acted in panic, not malice, someone who snapped under extreme pressure. But in the end, the court could not overlook the brutality of the killings. The judge called it a catastrophic tragedy, saying it was a case with no winners, only victims. He sentenced Shuvonne Vinson to 2 life terms in prison, ensuring she would never again live freely. As for the little girl at the center of the tragedy, she was placed with relatives, kept away from the violent memories and the legal chaos that had surrounded her. She would grow up without her mother and without the 2 women who had loved her deeply. Her life would forever be shaped by a day she was too young to fully understand. To this day, the story of Shuvonne Vinson raises haunting questions. How far can fear push a person? How does desperation twist the mind? And how can a mother's love, something meant to nurture and protect, become the driving force behind unthinkable violence? The case remains one of the most chilling examples of how emotional turmoil, paranoia, and unchecked panic can erupt into horror. It is a reminder that the human mind, under enough pressure, can become its own battlefield. It is a story of love turned dark, a protection turned violent, and of a tragedy that left 2 families shattered forever.
Please don't swipe away. Subscribe to our channel for more unsolved cases, more intriguing and unfinished crime stories. You don't pay to do this. Please just do it.